All right, everybody, welcome back to Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown. I'm here with my current, my normal co-host, Dr. Andrew Vallo. We have a really important subject that we both really believe in: fighting burnout. From my point of view, Energize, we service 310 practices, and I get to routinely watch very talented docs go through burnout and then have a snowball of negative events from the burnout, and it becomes a giant mess. And Andrew, runs a big group. I'm sure he sees docs have burnout. And, this is a hot subject in dentistry. I mean, Alan Stern, who me and Andrew both know are all about taking care of your life and living good and kind of fighting burnout and self care. And I think, dentists, you guys have a hard job. Like, I would not want your job. And burning out on your job, if you don't pay attention, like, you think you're doing great. And then one day you walk in and it hits you like a ton of bricks that you're burned out. And then what you do is you try to force yourself to maintain that pace. You got to listen to your body, listen to your emotions. You have to create mechanisms to protect yourself. So this is something me and Andrew are really excited to talk about. I have a lot to contribute to this one because I've watched a lot of docs burn out, and I've just had a scenario recently that kind of hit home for me. There was a really talented doc who burned out. But Andrew, this was your idea to do this episode. So what was your motivation for the burnout episode?
On a recent episode that Matt and I had recorded, which actually was about my charity program, No Hungry Pets, we kind of went on a little side tangent about overachiever syndrome, perfectionism, self-worth, and mental health in dentistry. And I kind of reeled us back and I said, hey, man, I think this is a great topic, but I think it deserves its own episode. And I want to, kind of shift back to what we're here to talk about today. And so that's kind of where it came from. But I mean, let's be real, guys. I'm sure most of you listening know a colleague, friend, someone in your dental community that has experienced some significant periods of burnout. Many of you probably have had your own periods. I would say for myself, fortunately, I don't feel like I've ever had a severe period of burnout, but I feel like I've went through different mini burnout periods throughout my career. And that's why I feel like no matter where you're at in your dental career, you're susceptible to it. When you first start, when you're a newbie dentist, I mean, when I was a newbie dentist, I got burnout fairly quickly because I feel like dental school doesn't properly prepare you. At least most dental schools don't properly prepare you for real world dentistry. And all of a sudden you're thrust into these environments where the expectations are tenfold of what you were used to doing in your one afternoon, one patient, one or two fillings, whatever you're doing back in dental school. And all of a sudden you're expected to manage multiple columns. And I'll tell you guys, that's part of the reason why I don't hire new grads, because I think of myself as a new grad. Before I went into public health, I was initially thrust into a role that was not a good fit for me. And I mean, I was fired. I couldn't keep up. And so that was a tough period for me. I don't have the bandwidth to mentor new grads in our group. And two is I don't want to put someone in a environment that I feel like they have a high chance of failure. And I feel like in our busy practice models, I think a lot of new grads would have a high chance of failure and burnout. So that's why I say, hey, I'm glad you're interested. Go work somewhere else, kind of cut your chops. And if you're still interested, come back, let me know and we'll talk. I would say I went through another burnout a few years later after going through public health and then being an associate somewhere else. I think I was burned out as an associate working for someone else. And part of it was, I had one of my associate jobs maybe wasn't the best fit. I had gotten a lot faster. I was a much higher producer, but it maybe just wasn't the right working environment for me. And I was starting to burn out there, feeling underappreciated as an associate, wasn't getting the right enough patients, felt like, maybe the owner doc was kind of cherry picking, whatever it was. And so I, try to think about that as I would hire associates and like, hey, I want to make sure I don't put them in that situation where they're feeling underappreciated, as an associate. When I became a practice owner and was the practice owner, office manager, full-time dentist, producing over 200,000 a month, doing all the behind the scenes stuff, still learning the ropes of practice ownership, I got burnout fairly quickly there because I was just working 80 to 100 hours a week doing everything. And it's tough to wear all those hats. So, I mean, I very intentionally we grew so fast, I very intentionally started bringing in associates and cutting back my clinical work so that I could focus more on the business side and kind of avoid. So that's what I would say is like the moral of this story is every time I've started to encounter one of these kind of like mini burnout periods. And like I said, I feel like fortunately things never got too bad where like I was waking up dreading going to work or, couldn't sleep at night or whatever it was. But I mean, you definitely got into these periods where, a few weeks, a month, you're just like, man, I'm not enjoying this as much. I'm not as happy doing this. I don't know how long I want to do this for. And I think I would listen to my body, my mind, myself as I hit those points. And I'd say, you know what? It's time for a change. It's time for a pivot. It's time to find a different job. It's time to go into practice ownership. It's time to cut back clinically and bring in some help. I would say that kind of that last point I hit was when we were growing I was already out of the chair clinically. We were growing very aggressively, and I did not have a strong enough of a leadership team around me. And I was still responsible for too much of the day-to-day operations. And the group was just too big. There was too much to do. And so again, I think I kind of hit that point. I dealt with it for maybe a couple months, whatever it was. And I said, you know what? It's time to invest in our leadership team. It's time to add, this position, CHO, CSO, regional manager, another executive assistant, whatever it was. And we did. We doubled down on our leadership team. And now at this point, I'm able to delegate so much more of that day-to-day responsibility and oversight. And that's helped me get through that most recent period of burnout. So
I think that we don't realize that like we go down this route of like working and working and working, and we think we're doing like these great things. We don't realize there's a couple of prices to that. One price is you think you're doing great, but if you had taken that day off consistently, would you actually be a better doc in the operatory? Would you have recovered? You know what I mean? Yeah, I have a doc that like does 270 a month, works 5 days a week, and like routinely on a Friday, practice closes at 5. He'll be there at 7:00 at night doing something, and I'm like, dude, go home. Like, you realize, like, go home. Like, you going home will make you more efficient and better next week. Like, take the time off. There's a whole book about sharpening the axe. If we don't sharpen the axe, we just use it. The axe is dull. It's not effective. And a lot of times it's the guys that reach that higher achiever situation, and they really kind of throw themselves in that. I had a doc recently, and this should be a good cautionary tale. Guy did a startup. He's important to me. I won't say the name of the practice and name of the doc. And he ramped up to 270 a month by himself. I think 4 assistants, 2 hygienists, 2 front desk people, 6 operatories. This guy never stops all day long. And routinely his wife would call him and 6:30 at night, he should have been home at 5. And it's bedtime for the kids, and she's frustrated because he's not home. In that scenario, the only people that remember you not being home is your family. That patient, once that work's done, they're not like, oh, doc stayed an hour late. That's great. Schedule them for the next day. Fit them in your schedule somewhere. Like, you need that downtime. And this doc had one incident, and then had a mental break, and then some stuff happened, and license was in probation, and then it's kind of snowballed into his license being suspended. And I really think if he would have created more time for himself and fought burnout, and fighting burnout isn't just taking time off. Fighting burnout is self-care. When you take the time off, doing things that are meaningful for you, eating right, exercising, meditating, whatever it is that you need to make you feel better about yourself, that's part of fighting burnout. And I think that we do a startup, docs, you guys do a startup, or you do an acquisition. And this thing becomes the entire focus of your life. And on some level, it should be for a couple of years, maybe, but then we never grow out of that. There's a point where, like, when you're rolling and things are starting to get good, you have to create these mechanisms to fight burnout. And then what happens is You think if you fight burnout and you choose to do these other things rather than production, you think you're going to make less money. Ultimately, what happens is, ultimately, is you are in a better condition to do harder things and be more profitable doing them because you took the time to maintain yourself. I want to say I've watched this happen. Last 5 years, we have 310 practices. I've seen like countless docs just burn themselves out. And I think there's something to do like 270, 300,000 a month. That's cool. If you're not doing it, making personal time for yourself, you're going to do it for a while, 1, maybe 2 years. Then you're going to wake up in year 3 and you just don't want to do it. You're burned out. You just don't want to. If you would have taken time to those 1 and 2 years and done a lot of self-maintenance and had like an intentional self-maintenance, not like, yeah, I'm going to go kayaking every now and then. No, you go kayaking every Friday morning for yourself, by yourself, to be in nature, to relax and recharge. Like that's honestly, that is as important as developing clinical skills, in my opinion.
Matt, I think you said a couple very impactful things that I'd like to unpack a little bit here. The first one is, you were talking about doing a startup and ramping up and, working like crazy. I'm a big subscriber to there are seasons in your career. So Mark Costas talks about this a lot. I do think there are times, and honestly, I would not be in the position I'm in today if I didn't hustle and grind in the early stages. Like when I first started my startup and I didn't have money to pay a big leadership team and I was the only doctor there. I mean, I had to work a lot, especially because I wanted to grow the practice quickly and add more practices and whatever. So I did go through a couple of years where I was working essentially 7 days a week, at least probably 70, 80 hours, some weeks, even more than that. It was pretty much nonstop, maybe one I got married the one year we did our honeymoon. So I took a week off for that, but like not a lot of vacations. My wife was still working at the time. So, she's at work during the week. I'm at work during the week. We didn't have kids on the weekends. I might work on a Saturday I might get up and go to the gym at 6, 7 a.m. and get to work and quit working at 5, 6 o'clock. And our kind of fun activity, we go grab a drink and dinner and whatever. And that was it. That was my life for like 2 years because I was in that hustle and grind phase. And it allowed me to, I put in the work. I was able to build this dental group that I have now because of it. But that was not sustainable long term, especially because my goal was to have a family. And, as soon as we had our son, I knew it was time for me to start cut. So like everything I've done has been intentional and planned. I told my wife at the time, we had real conversations about it. This is going to be a grind and hustle period for me. This is the season that I'm in. And if you're okay with this being our life for a couple of years, I think it's going to lead to much bigger, better things, more freedom, more opportunity in the future, but this won't be forever. And it's one thing to tell yourself that, but you actually have to take action. So I remember when I was kind of in the midst of this hustle and grind period, and I told myself, my goal is I'm going to hire an associate and I was in a different mastermind group back then. And I told them there, my one goal leaving this session is I'm going to hire my first associate within the next 3 months. And I did. And then I was at another meeting and I said, my goal is I'm going to cut myself back to 2 days clinical by this day. And I did. So you've got to be intentional and you've got to plan and set goals and set timelines for yourself so that you can pull yourself out of those seasons and kind of into that next season of your career. I was fine. I was able, I'm not saying there weren't tough days and tough weeks, but I was able to do that for, a period of time, but there's no way I would be able to do that now, especially not with our son. I need to be a father. I need to be a husband. I need to be present. So I guess that's the first thing is we're not, if you are starting out on your startup journey, especially if you don't have kids yet, this is probably the time to put in that extra work, but just plan intentionally so that this is a temporary period of your life to build something great. And you've got plans to start backing yourself away so that you can have a life again outside of this startup that is your entire life right now. So advice is, we're not saying don't put the work in for your startup. And even if you already have kids, unfortunately, it may require some sacrifice of time for a period of time to get things going. But once things do get going, I mean, if you're doing 200K production, 250K, you can afford to hire that other person. You can afford to bring in the associate. I mean, not even necessarily at those levels, but I'm saying I think sometimes people get lost in that growth, and it's just we keep moving the goalpost. We always want more, and we don't allow ourselves to say, you know what I've built is great. I can afford to take a hit on my income to bring in more help, to allow myself more time. The second thing I want to unpack and transition into is self-care. So I think it's very important you have time away from work and time with your family. And again, especially if you have kids, like for me, that was a big sticking point, is I want to be more present for my son. But like, I do think you need time for yourself as well. And Matt and I were talking about this a little bit on the other episode, where I sometimes feel guilty going to the gym, which is one of my self-cares that I do almost every single day of the week. But I sometimes feel guilty about that because in my mind, that's time I could be spent working so I can end my workday sooner, or that's time I could be, depending on the time of day, maybe home with my son if I don't get to the gym super early in the morning like I like to. But like, we shouldn't feel guilty about, you do need to take care of yourself. It's like, put on your own oxygen mask before putting on someone else. If you're not in a good mindset, in a good mental state, it's going to be hard for you to care for those around you. So sometimes, even if in your mind you feel like you're being selfish, I do think you need to take that time, whether it's the gym. So my morning routine, we recently moved in a new house. My biggest requirement was that I had an outdoor area that I could kind of make my self-care space. So, I mean, we're in Florida, pretty much every house has a pool, but I was like, we need to have a hot tub because I want to be able to go soak in the hot tub a little bit. And I needed space. I wanted a cold plunge and I wanted a space for a sauna. So like, that has been my investment into my health, my morning routines, my mindset. I got the cold plunge set up. The sauna should be arriving any week now. Biohacking interests me, all this stuff. Now that I'm in my mid 30s and my body doesn't recover like it used to, I'm trying to be more intentional about what I put into my body, about, what I do for myself. I think part of it is health related, like physical health, but I think part of it's mental too. I really do. So, I'm trying to get back to a very consistent morning routine where I do get up to my alarm clock every morning, around 5:20. That's when I like to get up, go to the gym while the house is still sleeping, everything's quiet, come home from the gym. I can do the cold plunge, the sauna, the hot tub, do kind of my meditating and mental like gratitude journaling and all that stuff while I'm kind of doing that self-care at home. And I feel like that is how you start your day on the right foot. And your routine doesn't have to be like that. Maybe it's reading a chapter in a book. Maybe it's reading the Bible. Maybe it's, listening to a motivational podcast. Maybe it's going for a bike ride. But I think self-care is important. I think time with family is crucial, but I do think everyone needs a little bit of that alone time to focus on an activity that you enjoy, that boosts your spirit, that maybe boosts your health, whatever it is. And I do think starting your day with, maybe you don't have an hour to do it. Maybe you don't have 2 hours. Maybe you can only carve out 15 minutes. I understand everyone's circumstances are different, but carve out that 15 minutes, whatever it is, do something right at the beginning of your day that starts you in the right mindset, that starts your day on the right foot. I think it is super impactful to do that versus wake up, check email, put out fires, text messages coming in, oh, this employee's calling off, whatever. If you start your day right into all of that BS, your mindset is going to be in a horrible place to start the day. So I think you need to be intentional with how you start your day.
No, I think there's another point to this is like we focus a lot on like fighting burnout professionally for professional performance. I think what there's a real big loss here is, doesn't your family deserve the best version of yourself? Like self-care impacts two things. Like you can go do whatever in collections and then go hang out with your team, hang out with your family, and like you're just dragging, you're not really engaged. Let's say you took that one day off and you did that thing that mattered to you. I personally, I go off-roading in my Jeep, I scuba dive, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I try to work one of these things into every week. And when I'm time with my family, I'm excited to do things. And some of these things I take my family along for. And like, we talk about like a lot about like the self-care in relation to performance in the business, because you'll be fresher, you can handle things more. But what really matters is your family. And if you do the self-care and you kind of take away a little bit of time from the burning out business, the burn's going to burn you out, your family have better experiences with you. I mean, there's a period of time I was working so much, and then the weekend came, and I was traveling. I mean, I still do travel a ton. And, you guys see me out there at dental events, and weekend would come, and like I would struggle to like get up on Saturday and do something with my kids. So I started working Brazilian. I mean, I'm traveling now with my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gi. When I go different places, I find a place to go train. And even on business trips, I'm finding an opportunity for self-care. I was just in Alvin, Texas with Doc Hoffpower recording, and I trained two nights at a jiu-jitsu school nearby. I'm here in Tennessee. I trained every other night while I'm here. I think that if you really open your eyes, there is opportunities for self-care, even when you're on the move. It's easy to say, I'm going to be here, I won't be able to do that. Andrew, I know every time we talk and you're at a dental event in the morning, you're finding a gym somewhere to work out, right? And at least you have to find a way we prioritize production, collections, and the business. You have to equally prioritize, how do I find these outlets? Because the deal, guys, there's no excuse. People can say, oh, I just don't have the time to do that, or I can't do it, or I don't have the opportunity, or I'm on the road too much. BS. There's a way you could do it. Listen, I travel a ton. I always have a couple hours here or there to myself, whether it be at night. I'll go to one thing I love to do is I love to go to local aquarium. Wherever I go, I love to go to local aquarium and relax, and look at the fish. And I'm really into aquariums. I don't pay attention to my phone. By the time I have to do my work, I'm refreshed. Like, carve these times out and protect them. But also, when you're on the move and things are different and you're out of your environment, look for the opportunities to do it. I trained last night. I trained the night before last. No, I trained last night and the night before. And yeah, getting on the mats and wrestling and choking some dude made me feel great. Like, that's my recreation, right? And I think that there's two parts to this. One part is, how do we create those moments in our own environments that we create the things? Like, you have the cold plunge and the sauna. You've created this environment for it, right? I think there's a lot of failure where we create the environment and the idea is good, but we don't follow through with it with intentionality. But then when you're on the move and you're doing things, you just make it a point, like when you're scheduling your trip, like there's a jiu-jitsu school 2 minutes from my hotel. I'm going to go train at least one 1 hour class. You can make time for one 1 hour class or whatever it is you want to do, right? Go to a local museum you haven't been to. But like, it's really important because that's an investment in your mental health, your relaxation, your well-being, a chance for you to think without having to have all this pressure of production and collections on top of you. And when that's all, I don't know about you, Andrew, but over at Energize, we're always growing. We're like 80 employees now. And when I kind of remove myself from the daily thinking of it and my brain is relaxed, I have some of the best ideas and thoughts during those self-care moments.
Like I've said, multiple times, man, all of these podcast ideas typically come to me while I'm at the gym, which is a big part of my self-care. So I agree. I think when you pull yourself out of that daily grind, that's when you have the ability to be more creative, think more creatively. Guys, I think something I want to like a point I want to kind of summarize from this recent dialogue Matt and I just had. We always do our best to keep our promises to other people. So, we want to keep our promise to our spouse, we want to keep our promise to our kids, we want to keep our promise to our employees, to our patients, to our friends, to our parents. But like, are we keeping our promises to ourselves, which is maybe the most important? And I feel like too often we're not. And I've been victim of that, but I think it's something I've worked on. I've gotten better at, it's like, oh, I'm going to play more golf next year. I enjoy playing golf. I'm going to play more golf next year. And then the next year goes by and you played like 2 times all season. So it's like, we tell ourselves we're going to carve out the time to do the things we enjoy. But do we actually take the action to make it happen? One of the things that I do, and I think a good tip is I try to make it as easy as possible to keep the promises to myself. So, the whole cold plunge idea, it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I used to not really have a good space to put one. And I looked into some options and obviously there's ones where you fill it with ice every day. And I'm thinking to myself, how likely am I to actually go through the effort of filling this thing with ice to make this cold plunge happen? I knew I probably was not going to use it nearly as much versus they have these ones you can buy. And I mean, I think it was like $1,600. It's an investment, in our health and our mental well-being, whatever it is, but it's got a freaking motor that cools it, and it cools it to whatever temperature I think goes all the way down to like 37. I'm not that crazy yet, but cools it to whatever temperature you want. And it does it within like an hour. And I'm like, oh man, if I can get up in the morning, set my cold plunge from the app on my phone, or even set a timer. So at a certain time of day, it cools to this temperature, go to the gym, come home, it's waiting there, nice and cold, exactly where I need it. And I can just jump in real quick. I'm going to use it a hell of a lot more. So that piece of advice is when it comes to self-care or carving out time for something you enjoy, try to make it as easy as possible. For golf, something I still need to do. I've been telling myself I'm going to join a golf league, because guess what? If I join a golf league and I've got a set time I'm supposed to be there every single week to play, I'm probably going to golf a lot more than if I have to coordinate with people or make the decision to go play. Or even if someone texts me, hey, you want to go play golf? I'm like, I should be getting work done, or I should be doing whatever. So try to make it as easy on yourself to do the things that give you energy, fill you up, and try to make it hard not to do those things. When you invest in something, you're way more likely to do it than if you don't invest. It's like the idea of the home gym. Well, I guess you invest in that too. But it's the idea of if you spend money, if you make a commitment to do something, I think you're a lot more likely to actually follow through and do it. So
I think part of it is you just have to do it with intentionality. You have to understand the self-care is as important as the production. It just is. And it's important for your family. You want to be the best version of yourself for your patients in the operatory. You want to be the best version of yourself for your staff. You want to be the best version of yourself for your family. Well, that doesn't happen on accident, man. What does happen on accident is you slip and you're not the best version of it, and you get short with people. Your attitude sucks. You're testy. You're tired. You're fatigued. You don't you start getting to a point every time you go to do something, man, I got to do this. You have to understand, you got to do it with a level of intentionality. And listen, I'm guilty of this too. And you got to say, this is the way it is, and carve the time out. I recently, how much you guys know about me, I have neck issues in one leg, and my body's pretty crushed from military service. I recently discovered that I can do indoor rock climbing pretty well. I'm in the middle right now of setting up 3 mornings a week with an indoor rock climbing coach, where I'm going to go rock climb 3 mornings a week. And that's going to be protected time. If a dentist comes to me and says, hey, I want to meet you at 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning, it's probably not happening. And you can say on one side, well, oh man, you should be with a dentist. That's income. Yeah, it is. But if I take care of myself, when I do finally meet with that dentist, he's going to get the best version of me.
Matt, you just gave me the perfect transition into kind of the last major part of this episode I want to talk about. and that's protect your time. So I think this is one of the things that I have gotten really good at, that it's allowed me to grow my group the way that I have, and has allowed me to maintain, some semblance of a work-life balance, or whatever that myth is that we want to call it, is I am very protective of my time. So I am a yes man when it comes to opportunities. Obviously, you don't open 10 practices in 4 years, if you're not a yes man, and if you're not willing to take on risk and things like that. So if someone approaches me with a good opportunity, I will absolutely say yes. I will say, in general, when I get approached to have a meeting, to go to lunch, to go to dinner, I say no like 95% of the time.
I'll call you when I'm in Tampa, and I'll be like, hey, let's grab dinner. And you're like, no, I can't do it.
And that's a little different because Matt and I are actually friends. So it's not, but I guess that's a fair point too.
Just stuff going on. You're with Rhett and your wife, and you are protecting your time. You say, hey man, I got stuff going on. I can't. And I'm never like, oh, Andrew's being a jerk. But like, I get it. It's your family time.
So I will say there's maybe different levels of it. When it comes to like so having the group that I have, having the podcast that I have, I get emails and text messages. I don't even know how they got my number and things like that all the time, like every week. Or even, and again, we talked about this before, guys, I feel bad sometimes. I have a lot of dentists reach out to me and say, hey, do you have time for a phone call? And 99, unless it's a dentist I know and have a relationship with, or maybe it's in my mastermind group, 99% of the time I say, I'm sorry, I don't. Like, here's my podcast. If you haven't listened to it, or here's a specific episode of my podcast, related to your question, or, if you have a question, let me know and I'll do my best to answer it via email when I can. But I know that I need to be protective of I still, despite the leadership team I have, I'm not working 70, 80, 100 hours a week like I used to, but I'm still working more than I'd like to. And I need to focus my work time on getting the work responsibilities done. I've got my podcast, which is kind of a hobby, kind of a give back, whatever you want to call it. But I've got that time I've got to commit to that. I've got the time that I want to commit to my family. I've got, the time that I want to carve out and commit to friends. And I've got time I carve out for like self-care. And like, that's it, man. There's not a whole lot of extra time in my life. And if I said yes to random requests from vendors and other dentists and things like that all the time, it would cut into some, like, you can't just make extra time in your life. So it would cut into something. It would cut into my family time. It would cut into my self-care time. It would cut into my work time, and I wouldn't get everything I need to get done for the offices. So I do think it's really important you're protective of your time. And I think sometimes we feel bad doing this. Sometimes, you have a rep show up and they want to do a lunch and learn. And I'm not a big fan of lunch unless there is a specific product that I want to add, or specific service, or whatever it is. Maybe that's different. But like, I mean, I'm sure you guys at your offices, you guys get offered people to come and do lunch and learns all the time. I typically say no, because one, we don't have a set lunch, for our offices. People take turns taking lunch and we keep the day going. But we're a gatekeeper. Even, and again, I'm not even in the offices, but I'm protective of my team's time. I don't want people coming in, with random sales pitches, distracting my team when there's other things that they should be focused on. So I'm protective of my time. I'm protective of my team's time. When I have a meeting, it's because I'm really interested in adding that service or learning about this thing or whatever it is. I don't have meetings just for meeting's sake. And I think sometimes I rub people the wrong way with that. But like, at the end of the day, it's what I have to do. And so like I can think of a couple instances in the last few weeks where I've had people from different companies say, hey, I'm going to be in town. Let me take you to lunch. I want to talk about this. And I'm like, I really appreciate the offer, but I mean, honestly, I don't eat lunch. I don't do lunch, schedule's just crazy. I don't really take meetings. If you've got something specific, shoot me an email, I'll review it. If I've got questions, we can jump on a phone call, whatever it is. Same, honestly, with meetings within our organization, guys. As CEO, I don't feel the need to be in every single meeting. So there are a lot of Zoom meetings that happen with different members of the organization that I'm not a part of. There are ones I absolutely need to be a part of, but there's a lot that I don't need to be because my time is better focused on doing something else at that point in time. So don't be afraid to say no to things that aren't the best use of your time. Be protective of your time. Don't feel bad if people get offended because you're being protective of your time. I think that is one of the most valuable things that I've learned as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think protecting your time is really critical. I think sometimes people don't understand what protecting your time means. It's not just throwing it on a calendar and saying, I put it on the calendar, it's protected. So what is happening is everybody and their brother contacts you and goes, hey, I saw this on your calendar. Is it okay if we move it and do this? And the word no is important. Say, no, I can't do that. Because what's going to happen is they're going to move it, they're going to put something else there. And where is that going to land? That's going to land on the time you protected for yourself. So you have to protect your time for your self-care, but you got to protect a lot of other time so it doesn't end up turning into the thing that cannibalizes your self-care time.
How hard is it to call me on the phone, Matt?
So it's hard for us to get on the phone, but I know if I text you and say, hey, it's important we need to talk, I'll get a call back within a few hours. But we both don't have the luxury of like the shoot the shit phone calls.
So guys, for anyone that doesn't know, my phone doesn't ring. So, my phone is kind of like a mini computer, for texting and yes, like I do take phone calls, but I have my phone set up so it's always on do not disturb mode. And I've got this special, what is it? Some kind of like life protection app called Aura that, you can lock your credit in and do different things like that. And it'll report if you've got passwords that were leaked somewhere. So I got this software that's supposed to help protect, things like that. But it also has a call filter on it where even with my phone on do not disturb, if someone tries to call me, it like goes through this like automated AI type assistant where it basically finds out the purpose of the call. And you can set where certain people like my wife obviously like needs to be able to call me. So like you can set so certain people can get through, but there are only a handful of people that can call me and literally like my phone will ring and I'll pick it up. Life hacks is things like this. So I don't get distracted by, think about how many freaking spam phone calls there are out there, or even like phone calls that maybe aren't totally spam, but like isn't really a conversation you need to have at that moment. When I'm doing my deep work, I want to be 100% focused. And so not having the phone ring, avoids that distraction. And people that know they need to get a hold of me, they know, shoot me a text. I do check my text. If it's important, I will call you back. I have people that like brokers that help me find practices. They'll just send me a text. Hey, call me as soon as you can. And they know that as soon as I possibly can, I'm going to call them because I know that they've got an opportunity for me. So that's how I've trained people in my life is like, I don't want to be interrupted by a random phone call when I'm trying to get something done. I would rather someone send me an email, send me a text, and I will call them. If it's something important, if it's someone I want to talk to, whatever it is, I will call them, but it allows me to do it on my time, on, my schedule versus, on someone else's. So again, some people may think it's selfish. For me, it's been absolutely necessary. It has been a game changer. Along with protecting your time, I would say protect your sanity. So at this point in my life and my career, I've tried to cut out as much drama as possible. We've talked about before, I used to have notifications turned on my phone. So anytime one of my offices got a Google review, it popped up. And that caused a severe amount of anxiety. You'd see a notification pop up at 8:30 at night. You're finally relaxing, watching TV. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, bad review popped up. Not only did I turn those notifications off, I don't check our reviews. Our office managers check our reviews on a weekly basis and monitor them and respond to them and call patients if there's an issue and let our regional manager, operations officer know if there's an issue they can't resolve. So I've taken that negativity out of my life. I no longer have to deal with that. That has been huge. Drama within the organization. As much as we try to avoid it, guys, with 85 employees, there's going to be drama. I've tried to remove myself from as much of it as possible. I only get involved in situations that absolutely need me to be involved. My management team, my leadership team, they handle as much of that as possible. So I would say protect your time, protect your sanity, protect your mental health, your self-care. Make sure you make time for yourself, be intentional, realize that there's seasons in life. And again, maybe you're in the early phases of your startup and this is that hustle and grind, and that's okay. So again, I'm not telling you that you need to have amazing work-life balance right now. You probably do need to put in the work right now, but make sure that you are taking steps so that in the future, you're going to set a platform where you can step back from that work and you can take over more of your family life, your personal life, whatever it is. Start your morning on the right foot. Again, it doesn't have to be what I do. It doesn't have to be the gym. It doesn't have to be cold plunges or sauna or whatever else. It could be reading. It could be journaling. It could be reading the Bible. It could be going for bike rides, whatever you like to do. Take at least 10 to 15 minutes to start your day with something that's going to energize you.
I start with a gratitude journal.
I mean, that's great. Relationships are important. While you want to be protective of your time, you also want to make sure that you are making time for those that are important to you, friends and family. Call that loved one, send that text message, try to make time to get together with friends. And again, during certain seasons, it's going to be tough. If you've got young kids and you're a practice owner, it is tough. It's challenging. My wife and I all the time talk about how we feel bad that we don't see some of our friends more than we do. And it does. It kind of sucks, but like there are going to be periods where it's harder, but make time when you can. Make time for the people that matter. Practice gratitude, be grateful, do some gratitude journaling. I think all that stuff's helpful. And the last thing I want to say here, and I think then we'll kind of wrap, this is, one of our maybe a little bit longer episodes. We'll kind of wrap it up. Last thing I want to say, guys, is if you're really struggling, if you're really struggling with burnout, if you're struggling with mindset, if you're struggling with mental health, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I personally know people and dentists that have gone through some terrible things, that have filed bankruptcy, that have, lost people close to them, went through divorce, whatever. I know a lot of people that have went through a lot of shit and come out on the other side
and be better afterwards.
Yeah. But I guess my point is, don't lose hope and don't be afraid to ask for help. So, I mean, if you are listening to this and if this is hitting home and you feel like you're kind of stuck or in a place like that, ask for help. Talk to your family, talk to your friends. Reach out to Matt and I. I mean, seriously, guys, like this is probably one of the most serious topics we've ever done, but I know that there's a lot of people struggling in the dental industry. And, my goal for this episode was to try to give you some framework for ways to get through that funk and to get to the next phase of your career and to protect, your sanity and your time and your mental health. But there are some times where you might need someone else to kind of help pull you through that. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
A really good episode. It's a really important subject in dental. Thanks, guys. Click like, subscribe, follow. We do not have sponsors. In the description, we're going to have a link to our virtual study club. It's got 350 dental professionals and growing in it. We bring in subject matter experts from all over the industry. They're never sales pitches. They're true educational sessions for about an hour. It's free to the community. You don't have to be an Energized client. It's just for anybody who listens to Dental Unfiltered or is out there. Share, add your friends to it. So place to give back. So thank you guys and have a great day.